Hello, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter friends and fans and whatnot. I wanted to do a very kind of different video. I know I've done stuff on videos on this stuff before, but I wanted to do this video because I was on the verge of an anxiety attack earlier today. It actually wasn't the first time that this had almost happened, and the day before I went through this as well, and I actually, haven't had an anxiety attack for a long time, but sometimes, it just feels like it's building up. And it brought this whole thing on once I had posted a status on Facebook, and so I wanted to, a friend had told me sometimes that when you're having a bad day, and we agreed it really is the little things, that if somebody just says something to you or just out of the blue calls you whatever, or shows up or whatever they do, that sometimes, just hearing that you're a good mom, just hearing that you're a good person or whatever, just whatever it is, it can really brighten your day up. But it also shows when somebody contacts you and says, hey, I know what you're going through because I'm going through it too. That also shows that you're not alone. And in saying that, I wanted to not only thank this person if they see this video, but I wanted to let other people know that you are not alone either on certain issues, which I've done, in the past. For most of my life, I have dealt with depression. I think I was dealing with depression before I even actually realized, what depression was. I was that young. I've also struggled for many, many, many years with social anxiety, which isn't as bad as it used to be, but it still rears its ugly head sometimes. And one of the symptoms for me, or well, not really so much a symptom, but one of the things that shows on me when I get out someplace and I'm dealing with the social anxiety is you'll be able to tell that I kind of, keep back, from everybody. I have a tendency, if I'm with somebody, to talk an awful lot, just because I don't know if I feel like I have to try to maybe stand out where I'm at, which really, that doesn't seem to make much sense. But then there's times I don't know. I can't explain it, because really you would think if you would want to stay, like in the back of a room. But then I think maybe by doing that, for some reason, I just feel more comfortable that way, especially with whomever I'm with and everything. Like if we could carry on a conversation, it kind of calms me down. I tend to get, real fidgety. I sweat, a lot more. And, over the years I've gotten really good, at making better eye contact with people, which is very important. But then there's times, when the anxiety hits that I have a hard time, with that. And I just kind of withdraw, and get very backward. So that's the symptoms, that come along, or, the things that come along. Well, I guess you would say symptoms, the things that come along, with social anxiety. Now, for the depression, I'm constantly, it's an everyday thing. I mean, I could sleep, a full however many hours and everything, and still wake up in the morning feeling like I never went to bed. And so that's where, in part where the depression comes in. I'm always down an awful lot, and it's like, it goes like a roller coaster and everything, so to speak, where I can be really down in the mouth, and then, like I'll perk up and something exciting will go on, and I'll be happy, and the next thing you know, I'm right down again, to the point of, feeling suicidal feelings and such. And it's really hard. I'm a very hard person to be around when I get like that. I actually had a meltdown this morning, so it's very hard. Now I want to talk to you about anxiety. Earlier last year, I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder. Now, anxiety disorder, in itself, I mean, it's something that I kind of, it's hard because you have all these things together, and sometimes you kind of say, well, this is this and this is that. You don't realize that there is an actual anxiety disorder. You just label it as depression, or you label it as a social anxiety thing or whatever, or, just like with stress and stuff and that. So to say, that it's an actual anxiety disorder, that was something new for me. But I had been having issues, with real bad shortness of breath. I was really, really struggling, and I finally even went to the hospital, and I got all checked out, and they said, there's nothing actually wrong with you. It's just basically all the things that you mentally have dealt with over the years are coming out, physically. And that's what it is, it's anxiety disorder. Now, signs for that, for me, is not only the shortness of breath, which right now I'm actually going to be going here very soon to an allergist. My doctor thinks because I've been through all these different inhalers. I'm taking Singulair here now at night, and I'm still dealing with a shortness of breath. I mean, I can be sitting watching TV, not talking to anybody, whatever, just sitting watching TV, and all of a sudden I'm short of breath. It's really hard. And so she figured with all the different stuff that we've tried that maybe it's my allergies making me like this. At least where the shortness of breath and that is concerned and everything. So it's something now that she wants to really look into and try to tie, like maybe with the asthma that I do have, because I do have a little bit of asthma, that maybe it's all tied in together somehow, and try to figure it all out and everything so we can find, the right kind of course of action to go with here. But with the anxiety disorder itself, I'm actually on medication, for the anxiety disorder, and it seems to be, doing the trick. But one of the things, with that is just the fact that obviously, I'm an emotional person, I'm a sensitive person. I tend to handle things a little bit differently. I do get really anxious, I worry an awful lot. But in the physical sense, everything obviously, like they said, it's basically all, the mental stuff I went through is coming out physically. In a physical sense, the way you can tell that I have anxiety disorder, which I just figured it was nerves. I didn't realize it was an actual disorder. And I catch myself doing this all the time. I'm actually doing it right now, which is very frustrating. I pick at the skin around my nails, and right here, you can see is a prime example. You see where I bled. I bleed an awful lot. I have tried actually boiling, like taking peroxide and putting on my fingers, and then putting Neosporin on the really bad spots and wrapping Band-Aids around them just overnight. I won't go out in public and everything like that, but just overnight to try to heal it. But it's like I'll be out. It doesn't matter where I'm at. I mean, I can be sitting and everything, and I'll just like sit in. If there's like people around, I'll just kind of like hide my hand, but I'll be like, going and everything and just like constantly picking. And when the skin tries to come back out, like to grow back out, and everything, I turn around and it just goes again. And I've thought about maybe like putting nail polish on, because then I wouldn't want to mess up my nail polish. But I've learned the hard way that it doesn't make any difference. So I still do it. I also have went back to sometimes biting my nails, or I have a tendency that if like I would get like let's say like right here, like if that would like break, rather than cutting it off with the nail clippers and then filing it, I'll just rip it right off, which is like that's where that comes from. But another thing that I have a tendency to do is I pick at my face. It's like I have very sensitive skin and everything, very dry skin. And so there's times where you get like white flakes. I'm sure many of you go through this. Well, they say, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that and everything. Well, I turn around and I mess with that and everything, and I just pick in my face. And it's like, even if my face isn't bad, I just keep doing and doing and doing and doing. And I'm also one of these people, and I'm sure this is an actual name, a pimple picker. And you're not supposed to touch your pimples because obviously germs and stuff, and it's disgusting. I'll admit it, but I do that. I just keep going, and I think, well, if I keep doing this, eventually it's just gonna go away. And really, it's not doing any good, and you stand a better chance, of scarring. So that, those are the two big things I do. And sometimes I'll scratch my head, and I have, like I said, I just have a hard time because for me, I have extreme, well, maybe not extreme, but I have very sensitive skin, and it's just very hard. This time of year is even worse because it dries your skin out even more, so then it's like a double whammy, and it's extremely hard. And my fingers, you can see like the cracking and that comes from winter and that. There's times I will put hand cream on before I go to bed to try to help with that, but I'm not one of these women, that puts all this expensive cream on and does and all this, and I just can't get into something like that. But, anxiety disorder, it's very frustrating, it's very trying, especially with the shortness of breath. And the night that I had, the morning I turned around and came home from the hospital, I turned around and had an anxiety attack. It was very small, but I had an attack. That night when I went to bed, I wasn't feeling well, and I said, you know, I'm not feeling well, I'm freezing, I just don't feel right, I'm going to try and go to bed. I remember my mom had already went to bed and everything, you know, after I'd been in bed for a while and I was laying there, I couldn't sleep, you know, I was really having a hard time trying to fight this attack, and my mother finally went to bed. I came out, and of course the living room wasn't as crowded as it is now, but I came out, curled up and everything in the chair, and brought my blanket out, and I mean, like I said, I was literally shaking, I was freezing so bad, and I'm just trying to fight this attack. I literally thought, and for anybody that has been through an anxiety or a panic attack, I'm sure you know, you can obviously relate that you feel like you're going to die. I mean, I was sure I was going to die that night. And I wouldn't even wake my mom up, because I still live at home with my mom, and I wouldn't even wake her up, and because she had like a really important surgery she was going to be having the next morning, and I knew she needed her sleep, and we had already found somebody that could drive her to her surgery and then bring her home, because I said I knew just the way I had been feeling during the day that I wouldn't be good behind the wheel. And that night I was so sure I was going to die. It was just so bad. And I pulled out my Bible and I read my Bible, and that helped some to calm it down. But the reason why I'm doing this video up, and I know my videos are always long, but the reason why I'm doing this up, I just want everybody to know, you know, and obviously I know it helps me to know that I'm not alone, and I just want you to know that you're not alone. You're not alone where obviously the anxiety disorder is concerned, where the depression is concerned, where the social anxiety is concerned, where the suicidal thoughts are concerned. You're not alone in that. And I also have a weight issue where I put on a lot of weight, extra weight that where I lost so much weight and I put all this weight back on it. So, I mean, I understand the weight loss issues as well. That is another thing where between all the stress that's going on around here and personal things that I'm dealing with, I, still have a tendency to have the suicidal thoughts and stuff. And I've come really close, to, going that route again. And my doctor doesn't even realize it, because and obviously, now I'm putting it out to the world and that, but it's just very hard to talk about. And I had come clean with her and told her stuff and everything. I don't go to talk to anybody. I won't see a psychiatrist or anything. It's just my choice. I just won't do it. And it's just very trying, to try to fight that, and to try to think, of my nephew and my mom and different people and everything, and what would they do without me. And even for the times where I feel worthless and useless in that, I'm just reminded of the little things that I have done to make a difference. And sometimes just being there, you make a difference, and people don't tell you, and you never realize that. So my final closing message is that if you have somebody in your life, just because you assume that they know that you're thankful for them, that they know that you love them, just remind them anyway. It's not a shame. It's not a hurtful thing. It's not a terrible thing. Well, I know I'm not saying this right, but it's not a bad thing to call your mother up and say, I love you, Mom. I know even when I lived away from home, I eventually got away from it, but I tried to strive every night to call my mother and tell her good night, that I loved her. And, I still do that here now, and I'm 31 years old, and I still tell my mother that I love her. And I tell my grandparents that I love them too. And, it's the last thing I say to my grandparents before I leave, unless we would get another conversation before I go out the door. Usually it's that I love them. And to me, if I'm going to turn around and something's going to happen, on either end, I want that to be the last words that we say to one another. I actually had a time here a few months ago where a friend of mine passed away. And the last words that we said to one another was that we loved each other, and you couldn't ask for anything more than that. You really couldn't. God really helped with that. I think he knew, and he wanted it to be something where I think he figured it would make it easier for me, and she just, that way she knew. And not that she didn't know already, but I think we just needed to exchange it. So I really encourage anybody out there, and it doesn't have to be just your mother. Just anybody, even if it's like a coworker that turn around and fills the coffee pot, and gets the coffee going in the morning. Thank them for that. Tell them that they mean something, Aaron, because maybe they do that and they feel like, oh, I'm coming and doing this again, and these people don't appreciate what I'm doing. Why am I coming in here at 6:30 in the morning when I don't have to be in here till 7 just so I can get coffee going and get stuff lined up, whatever, Thank them for what they're doing, because they may need to know that and everything. Tell people that you love them and everything. Hug people and just share the love and everything, and spread as much joy as you can, because you never know when you're going to have that final moment. And with my friend in particular, you know, I had planned to go down and see her again. I really had planned on going down to see her again, and I got sick. And, you know, I wasn't able to go down. And then once I received the word that she had passed on, I was just crushed, you know. And it wasn't, I mean, I knew she was in bad shape, but it wasn't something that I expected, because she'd been there before and she'd bounced back. So I just figured, you know, she was going to bounce back again, even though I had a suspicion. And, you know, it was like 2 weeks after I had seen her, I think, or so, she was gone. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where you just don't know. Life is it's so precious, and we're all living on borrowed time. So just really be thoughtful of that. And if you see somebody posting things online that you think's a little suspicious, that they may be in trouble, check on them. It doesn't hurt to check on somebody just to make sure that they're all right and that they're safe. And just be encouraging and not hurtful, and don't be pushy either. You know, just kind of respect and everything, and, you know, have boundaries, but know that it's your job to, if you say to your friends or somebody, to me, it's your responsibility to kind of watch out for them, as I'm sure they watch out for you. That's just, to me, the way it goes. But my friend was right, you know, you really do well to know that there are other people that know where you're coming from. And it's not to be like, in a way, like, well, I don't know what your problem is, and everything. There's 10 other people that's going through this, so why don't you just get over it? It's not like that. It's not. It's just that we're all trying to get through this together, and we should lean on one another, not tear one another down. So I just want to say that good night. I love you guys. I love you guys, and God bless everybody. Thank you for being there, and I bid you all adieu.